Hey there, it's Jen and I'm back with another layout for Hip Kit Club. Today we are challenged to use this paper from Paige Evans and Pink Paisley's Truly Grateful collection. It's paper number 14. Paige always has a paper like this in her collections that is a bunch of different squares with patterns from the collection that you can use to punch out or back a cut file or something like that, so you get a bunch of patterns in one sheet. And so what I decided to do, we're challenged to use punches and stitching and this paper, and so I thought I would pull out my little bow punch. I haven't used this in a while and I really do love it. It makes little bows like this. This is kind of like a crooked little weird one, but they turn out this size, and I found that as I was looking through my punches that this one just fits on that 2x2 space, so I thought it would be perfect. I also have my heart punches out because I think that I might use some hearts. In fact, I started with thinking about hearts and then I remembered I had the bow punch, so we'll see where it goes. But that is my goal. And then I have a bunch of 2x2 photos of my daughter who took my phone and took these random pictures of herself, and I am going to make some photo strips out of them. So there's 8 of them, so I'll make 2 4x4 photo strips with them for the layout. So that's where I'm starting, and I will talk you through the process.
Alright guys, so first thing I'm going to do is make sure all my photos are the same size, because I know they're not, and a few of them are a bit longer than the others, so I'm just trimming them down because what I want to do is make these look like photo strips. So I'm going to lay them out 4 in a row, so I'm just trying to figure out which photos I want to do where, and the way I have it laid out right here is pretty much what I'm going to end up with. I am going to just adhere them in a strip on some white cardstock, and I'm using the edge as a guide to line those up, and then I will lay down the other ones. Now I started putting them down, but I decided it would be easier if I just cut off the other strip and then I had another edge to line these up with. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to trim this first strip and then I will do the second one. So there's that one done. Nice little photo strip. I like doing photo strips. I think they're fun in a different way, and it's a good way to get on a lot of photos without taking up tons of room, but they also still have an impact. And when it's something like this where it's the same kind of photo, she just held the camera and did a bunch of different faces and took the photos, it works really well for that. So my layout is going to be based on some white cardstock. I figured since I was going to be using that colorful patterned paper that I needed something pretty non-distracting for it to rest on top of. So I'm cutting these strips so that they're easier to punch out of. And now I'm just going to take my bow punch and go ahead and go to town. So I kind of decided that I wanted to do the purples and the pinks, and so I'm just punching a whole bunch here. I actually end up not using some of these, and I'll go back and punch some blue ones later, and you'll see that my photos are pretty cool colored, and also we have a light blue front door, which you can see, and there's some green in the grass. And so even though I really wanted this to have those warm, I'm using purples and pinks, and they're both very warm versions of those colors, I needed to bring some cool in to help my photos feel like they went, and you'll see that a little bit later. But for now, I'm just still punching out all of those bows. This is just a punch from Fiskars that I've had in my stash for quite a while. And I'm not going to have you watch me fold all the bows, but basically what you do is you take that piece with the 2 big circle-y things and you fold those into each other, and it makes the bow part, and then the little tiny strip, you wrap it around and then you place it onto the bottom part with the little banner ends. So here I've made a whole bunch, and I'm playing around with them, trying to decide how I might want to arrange them on the layout. And I play with some different ideas, and I'm not quite sure what I want to do. I kind of like the way that looks. I play around with the idea of putting them on the photos. I've done it before where I had my photos at the top and then the bows filled the bottom of the page, and so I'm thinking about something like that. And I didn't cut this out because I thought maybe you would get ideas of how you would do something similar, even though I didn't end up going with any of these options. I had a little bit of a struggle. This is a color scheme too that is a little bit out of my wheelhouse. It's a little bit different for me, and so I struggled because of that as well. But I wanted to, sometimes it's good to push yourself just to try something different because you might really like it. So I want my title to be Love Your Silly Selfie, and I'm using these Pink Fresh Studio puffy alphabets, and I just couldn't get the words to look right. I like those to overlap so that it looks like a script, and this word, I've done it with other words and it looks great, but this word, it was not looking great. And so I just didn't like it. So I decided to go see if I didn't mind the way the word selfie looked. So I thought maybe I'll use these Paige Evans stickers for the word silly and then use those letters for the word selfie, which looking at it now, I kind of like, but then I decided to just go ahead and use those Paige Evans letter stickers for all of them. So I'm going to find the colors that will match here, and I actually didn't have another L that would match, so I used a bluish color, and that's another reason why I'll end up adding blue to this layout, because I needed to bring in that blue color. So I switched out the S in silly for that as well. And then I'm going to use these little tiny Pink Fresh Studio alphabets to get some purpley pink colors and write love your. And so I am happy with that. Now, at this point, I kind of decided that some of those little bows at the bottom didn't quite work with this. I didn't like the way that the green was looking, and then I felt like I needed to add some blue. So here I'm punching out 2 more blue bows, and I'm going to fold those up. And this, on the first example that I showed you before, I turned off my camera, and sorry, I'm not on screen for this, but I used some glue dots, but for the rest of the bows, I used my Nuvo liquid glue. I just really like the way it holds, and so I'm just using dots of glue, and you just have to hold it in your hand for a second to make it work. So here I've replaced that plaid bow with the blue one, and I'm also going to replace a pink bow with a blue one too. And then at this point, I'm kind of thinking maybe it would be cute to have them dangling down from the top, like from a string. And I remembered we were challenged to use stitching on this layout, and so I thought it would be fun to have the bows hanging from a string. And so I am going to punch holes in my background paper after I draw some lines, and I'm going to stitch just in white thread. I didn't want it to be too distracting or contrasting. It's just a nice little detail, but I'm going to stitch in white thread to make a little string for all of these bows to hang from, and I think it turned out pretty cute. So just using my ruler to make sure the lines are straight, and I should have used my ruler to poke all of the holes, but I didn't at first. I'm just using a little piercing tool here, but I will eventually grab my ruler and poke all of the holes just because they look better that way. Sorry, my hair is getting in there a little bit. But yeah, I'm just going to poke all the holes, and then I'm going to take some white thread and I'm going to stitch this. There you had a little glimpse of what it looks like. So you can kind of see that there, and I'm just resting all of my bows at the bottom of those lines and trying to make sure I have a nice look here. I'm going to switch some of them out, and I kind of decide to go for the bows that are a little bit more of a solid color, and so I switched a few of those out, and I'll just save them for later. They're really cute. So I kind of thought maybe I needed another bow in there, and so I'm trying to figure out where that other bow needs to go. And I'm going to go ahead and, one of the strings also needed to be longer. So I'm stitching one more little stitch at the bottom of one of them. And then I'm going to add another bow at the top left ish. And you'll see that here in just a second too. So I'm kind of thinking, oh, this needs something else. So I will go ahead and put another bow up there, and I'm going to go ahead and punch the holes. And I like that kind of lighter purple color. Before I stitch this, I'm going to glue down the rest of my bows because I'm sick of having to put them on and off the layout. So I'm just using some glue dots here to do that with, and just again putting those bows at the bottom of the stitched piece, which is fun. I kind of think this would be really cute if it was just tone on tone, if all the bows were white. Just thinking of that now as I'm watching it back, but I would really like to try that with a tone on tone look. So I'm stitching the little string here for this last little one that I decided to add, and tying it off at the back. And now I can add my final little bow and I'm good to go. So now I'm going to glue that one down and then work on getting the rest of my layout together. So I'm liking how this is looking. Again, very different color scheme for me. This is not a color scheme that I lean toward. But the first thing I decided to do, I wanted to have a mixed media feel without actually doing the mixed media. And so I used these stickers from Kim Watson from her Indian Summer collection with Pretty Little Studio. And those are perfect. There was a bright pink, a lighter pink, and kind of a bluey purple. And so I used all three of those. And then I also used one that says "So Beautiful." Then what I did was go into my kit and pull out everything that I thought might work with this layout. And that's what you see in that little bin to the left there. And I'm using this PL card. It's one of the 3x8 cards, which I love that they're including that size now. And I'm just tucking a little bit of the stripe to the right and to the left of the photos. And then I'm going to fussy cut out this little tiny camera, which is from another a 3x4 card. And just thinking about where I might want to place those. I'm going to use some of these stickers. I thought "work" was hilarious, kind of like is kind of like a cheeky little statement with the photos, like "work it, girl," you know. And so I thought that would be a funny one to add. I actually will end up moving it from that space. I'll move it to the other side. Just felt like there was some words on the right at the top, and then now I put the words on the left hand side of the photos. So I also pulled out this little "yes" puffy sticker, and I like that. I like these blues. They're adding in just the right amount. And I also added a "noted" puffy sticker. And then I added that camera on foam, and this little phone is going to go right where it is now. And I'm going to add some hearts and some circles from these Paige Evans puffy stickers. And that's going to add another little pop of blue. So blue is kind of a secondary color. Purple and pink are the main colors. But I like the pops of blue, and I used dark and light blues. And then I also, you see, I just added that little banner in between two of the photos for another little pop. And now I'm trying to figure out how to finish embellishing. I thought that I might add some flowers. I pulled out all the ones that were purple and pink and blue. And so I'm kind of playing with those here. And I really love the way that this cluster ends up looking. But I feel like it's very distracting from the bows. And so I really felt like I couldn't have both the bows and this flower cluster. So I would go either one or the other. So of course, if you don't have a bow punch and you have these kits, then you can just create a little floral cluster instead, and it would be super cute. But kind of at this point, I'm like, no, that's way too much. So I'm going to get my title down. And I'm kind of putting it in the middle of nowhere, but I felt like I didn't want it to kind of nestle in with the bows because they're hanging from the top. And then I didn't want it exactly next to the photos because I felt like it felt off-centered. And so I just kind of centered it beneath the bows. And I feel like it works, especially after I add my journaling. So just kind of putting all of those letters down and making sure that they're kind of centered with each other. And now I am going to do my journaling. So I'm going to take my T-square ruler and draw some lines. And actually, I felt like the T-square was drawing them not quite straight. And so I took my other ruler and drew some lines and then journaled in a dark gray pen. I'm going to add my date, and I'm just using some kind of purpley pink ink. It's called Sugar Plum from Close to My Heart to stamp the date. And then I'm going to add just a few final touches with some more embellishments. So I'm thinking about more puffy stickers, but I felt like, no, I have 3 clusters of those puffy stickers already. So I decided to add some of these little enamel or epoxy hearts into each cluster, and I add the light pink ones. So there's 1 light pink heart in each. And then I decide to add some butterflies, and I'm just fussy cutting them out of this Paige Evans Truly Grateful patterned paper. And I'm going to do 1 that's the bright pink with blue, and then 2 that are the light pink with blue and that are smaller. And so I just wanted to make sure I stuck with the colors that are already on my layout. And you know, these might be a little too much even, but I just felt like adding them, so I did. You can do whatever you want. It's your layout, your scrapbooks, right? So I did whatever I wanted. And it was this. So after I cut out those butterflies, I'm going to stick them down, and I thought about putting 1 at the top and 2 kind of over at the left, but I decided to just have the butterflies kind of right around my title. And then at this point I was thinking, wow, there's that pop of green in that bottom right photo, and it just doesn't go. Everything feels so warm compared to it. Even the blue, I felt like it just wasn't quite enough. So I cut some of these leaves out of the patterned paper that had the butterflies on it, and I'm just going to kind of tuck a few of these leaf clusters in around with my embellishments. And so I will cut out 3 or 4 of these, and I'm going to stick them around the photos, and I feel like that helps a lot. And so here they are all cut out, and I'm going to glue them down, also gluing down those butterflies, and just making sure I want that butterfly next to the title and not somewhere else. And I'm using some liquid glue to do the leaves because the stems are very fine, and I want the leaf part to be able to stick up a little bit, and so I'm only adhering the stems. So sticking those in there, and I'm happier with the way that it has come together after that, but then I felt like the bottom needed something. So you'll see here in a second, I'm going to try some different things out for the bottom edge because it just wasn't quite right. So I have this kind of greenish cardstock, and then I also have that the back of that butterfly patterned paper was a blue. So I layered these up together just on the bottom, and I'm going to trim off the excess and kind of ruffle up the edges of that, just give them some texture. And I'm also going to give texture to the edges of the pattern paper I placed down before. And I like doing those little things just kind of as a little detail. And now I was thinking I wanted to add just a little bit of splatter to go along with those paint swatch stickers. And so I'm taking some of the magicals from the color kit, taking the pinkish, it's like kind of a coral color. I'm going to add just a little bit of the purple to it to give it more of a purpley pink hue, and then I'm going to splatter it. And I wanted some pretty small splatters, so it worked really well to do it like this with the paintbrush. And then I just used the tip of the brush to add in a few larger splatters where I wanted to. And that is going to complete this. So I have some close-up photos coming up, and I hope that you enjoyed. I hope that you'll check these kits out. The kits will be linked in the video description below, and let me know if you have any questions, and I will be sure to check back to answer those for you. Thanks so much for watching. This has been Jen for Hip Kit Club, and hope to see you back here again very soon.